Do you love the idea of making passive income? Would you like to make a market-beating yield for doing absolutely nothing? Would you be interested to know which of the dividend kings and aristocrats offer the best bang for your buck in regards to dividends? Then make sure you check out today's video. Before we get started, if you guys wouldn't mind liking the video, it's free and it really helps out my channel. I'd appreciate it. All right, so I realize that not everybody that watches my videos or that is into dividend investing gets excited over little dollar amounts like me. So in today's video, I wanted to provide you all with a list of the top 10 highest yielding stocks in the Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrat list. In this video, I'll give you guys the stock name and stock ticker, if they are a king or an aristocrat, the stock's current yield, payout ratio, and dividend growth rate, all of which will be provided by Dividend.com. And at the end of the video, I'll give you guys all another fun fact, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Now let's get to the content. All right, so the 10th highest yielding dividend stock amongst the Kings and Aristocrats list is Kimberly Clark, stock ticker KMB. So Kimberly Clark is a dividend king in the consumer staples field and has been paying an increasing dividend for the last 50 years. They are currently yielding 3.8%, while their sector is only yielding 1.89%. KMB's current payout ratio is 65.77%, while they pay out $1.16 per share per quarter, which also equals $4.64 per share per year. The dividend growth rate for KMB is 6.54% for 1 year, 4.46% for 3 years, 4.38% for 5 years, 5.0% for 10 years, and 7.27% for 20 years. So from March 20th of 2012 to March 18th of 2022, Kimberly Clark is yielding 9.02% annual return, while the S&P is bringing back 14.38% total return in the same time. And the 9th highest yielding dividend stock is Walgreens Boots Alliance, stock ticker WBA. So Walgreens is a dividend aristocrat in the consumer staples field and has been paying and increasing their dividend for the last 46 years. Walgreens is currently yielding 4.0%, and that's compared to the sector average of 1.89% yield. So Walgreens does have a very tasty payout ratio of just 37.16%. Walgreens is also paying out 47.75 cents per share per quarter, which also equals $1.91 per share per year. So the dividend growth rate for Walgreens Boots Alliance is 2.16% for the last year, 4% for the last 3 years, and 5.15% for the last 5 years. I don't have 10 and 20-year dividend growth rates for this as it was not available on Dividend.com. Walgreens is averaging a 6.22% average annual growth rate in the last 10 years with dividends being reinvested. This is again compared to the 14.38% growth rate of the S&P 500. And the 8th best yield amongst the Dividend Kings and Dividend Aristocrats list is Franklin Resources, stock ticker BEN. So BEN is a dividend aristocrat in the financial sector, and they've been increasing their dividend for the last 41 years. They are currently yielding 4.1%, while their sector is yielding 3.18%. And they also have a nice payout ratio of just 30.86% while paying 29 cents per share per quarter, which is equal to $1.16 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of BEN is 3.67% for 1 year, 5.95% for 3 years, 8.84% for 5 years, 12.76% for 10 years, and 13.59% for 20 years. The average annual return for BEN is actually a negative 0.65% over the last 10 years, and that's with dividends being reinvested, while the S&P brings you back that 14.38%. All right, and the 7th highest yielding stock from these lists is 3M, stock ticker MMM. So 3M is a dividend king in the materials sector, and they have been paying and increasing their dividend for the last 64 years. 3M is currently yielding 4.1%, while the sector is yielding 3.82%. And 3M has a pretty healthy payout ratio of 53.77%. All this while paying out $1.49 per share per quarter, which is also equal to $5.96 per share per year. 3M's dividend growth rate is 0.68% for the last year, 2.86% for the last 3 years, 5.92% for the last 5 years, 10.41% for the last 10 years, and 8.31% for the last 20 years. 3M's average annual return over the last 10 years with dividends reinvested is 8.18%, while the S&P brings back 14.38%. The sixth best yielding dividend aristocrat or dividend king comes in with ExxonMobil, stock ticker XOM. So Exxon is a dividend aristocrat in the energy sector and has been paying and increasing their dividend over the last 38 years. So this one's pretty close, but Exxon is yielding 4.3%, while the industry is a 4.24% average yield. Again, with a pretty healthy payout ratio of 50.34%. All this while paying 88 cents per share per quarter, which is equivalent to $3.52 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of ExxonMobil is 0.29% for the last year, 2.61% for the last 3 years, 3.21% for the last 5 years, 6.55% for the last 10 years, and 6.95% for the last 20 years. The average annual return from ExxonMobil in the last 10 years with dividends reinvested is 3.26%, while the S&P brings back 14.38% in the same time. The fifth highest yielding stock in the Dividend Kings Aristocrats list is Realty Income, stock ticker O. Realty Income is a dividend aristocrat in the real estate sector, and they have been paying and increasing their dividend over the last 26 years. Again, this one's pretty close to the sector, but Realty Income is yielding 4.5%, while the rest of the industry is yielding 4.46% on average. So the payout ratio for Realty Income is a little bit different. It is a REIT, but it's showing 181.50%. So Realty Income is actually paying out 24.7 cents per share per month. That's right. This is a REIT, which means they are a monthly payer, which is equivalent to basically $2.96 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of Realty Income is 1.57% for the last year, 2.54% for the last 3 years, 3.43% for the last 5 years, 5.05% for the last 10 years, and 4.75% for the last 20 years. Over the last 10 years with dividends reinvested, Realty Income actually brings you back a really nice 11%. But the S&P is bringing back that 14.38% over the same time. All right, and the fourth highest yielding stock on this list is Leggett & Platt, stock ticker LEG. LEG is a dividend king in the consumer discretionary field, and they have been paying and increasing their dividend over the last 51 years. LEG is currently yielding 4.5%, while the rest of the sector is currently averaging just 1.89%. LEG has a pretty healthy payout ratio of just 54.59%, while currently paying out 42 cents per share per quarter, which is equivalent to $1.68 per share per year. The dividend growth rate for LEG is 3.75% for the last year, 3.44% for the last 3 years, 4.38% for the last 5 years, 4.20% for the last 10 years, and 6.40% for the last 20 years. Over the last 10 years with dividends reinvested, LEG is bringing back an average of 8.73%, while the S&P is bringing back 14.38%. And the third highest yielding stock on this list is International Business Machines, stock ticker IBM. So IBM is a dividend aristocrat in the technology sector, and they have been paying out a growing dividend over the last 26 years. They are currently yielding a pretty impressive 5.3%, while the sector average is just 1.37%. Their current payout ratio is 62.01%, all while paying $1.64 per share per quarter, which is also equal to $6.56 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of IBM is 0.61% for the last year, 1.79% for the last 3 years, 3.56% for the last 5 years, 8.49% for the last 10 years, and 13.19% for the last 20 years. So IBM's average annual return with dividends reinvested over the last 10 years is actually negative 0.49%, while the S&P brings back that 14.38%. All right, and the second highest yielding stock on this list is Universal, stock ticker UVV. So Universal is a dividend king in the consumer staples field and has been paying and increasing their dividend over the last 51 years. They are currently yielding 5.5% versus the sector average of 1.89%. The payout ratio was not available on Dividend.com, but I was able to find a payout ratio of 75.7% for UVV, and they are paying out 78 cents per share per quarter, which is equivalent to $3.12 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of UVV is 1.30% for the last year, 3.56% for the last 3 years, 7.86% for the last 5 years, 4.89% for the last 10 years, and 4.46% for the last 20 years. The average annual return for UVV is 6.50%, and that is with dividends reinvested, while the S&P is bringing back 14.38%, also with dividends reinvested. All right, and the number one, the highest yielding dividend stock amongst the Kings or Aristocrats list, and some of you dividend savvy investors might already have guessed it, it's Altria Group, stock ticker MO. So Altria Group is a dividend king in the consumer staples field, and they've been paying and growing their dividend over the last 52 years. They have a sector-crushing yield of 7.1% versus the average of just 1.89%. Their payout ratio is getting a little high at 69.98%, but this helps them pay out that 90 cents per share per quarter, which is also equal to $3.60 per share per year. The dividend growth rate of Altria is 3.53% for the last year, 5.47% for the last 3 years, 8.42% for the last 5 years, 8.34% for the last 10 years, and 2.33% for the last 20 years. So Altria Group does have a really nice 11.28% average annualized return with dividends reinvested over the last 10 years, but it still doesn't compete to the 14.38% return of the S&P 500. All right, rounding all this up, I wanted to do this with small practical numbers since the last couple videos with larger amounts of money. So if you put just $100 in each of these stocks, it would total obviously $1,000. It would make you on average $11.02 per pay and $47.05 per year in dividend. And I know some of you are saying, I thought this was the highest paying dividend stocks. It is. This is a small amount of money you're putting in. Obviously, if you increase this money, your dividends will increase as well. Speaking of investing or not investing more money, the average 1-year dividend growth rate for these 10 stocks is 2.41%, which means if you did not invest any additional money, you could expect to make $48.18 next year in dividends holding the same company while not reinvesting any dividends. So again, if you reinvest those dividends, as I've demonstrated in my last video, this number would just increase exponentially fast. The average dividend yield for this portfolio is 4.7%, while the S&P brings back just 1.31%. I wanted to give you guys a little word of caution here though. It's typically noted that if you do invest in higher yielding dividend stocks, this often comes with the sacrifice of growth. Not saying you can't find growth in high yielding stocks, but it is a lot less likely. Even diving back to the last 25 years, only 2 of these stocks, 20% of them, have beat the S&P 500 in returns. So this is the little for fun section that you guys would have stayed for. One, if you guys are still here, I appreciate you guys for staying tuned. So what I did is I ran a little for fun race of these 2 portfolios, one with these highest yielding stocks and one with just the S&P 500 over the last 10 years, and I wanted to see how close the race would be. And you guys will see here that portfolio 1 is a $100 per stock for that $1,000 total investment. Portfolio 2 is just $1,000 in the S&P 500. The criteria is that we rebalanced annually to make sure it was 10% per stock in the portfolio 1. And it was, there's no rebalancing needed if you only have one holding. So rebalanced annually, and we also reinvested dividends. So at the bottom, we have the portfolios. The top is portfolio 1, the bottom is portfolio 2. The initial balance is the same, $1,000 for each. Over 10 years, the highest yielding Kings and Aristocrats brought you back $2,195, while the S&P actually brought you back $4,240. Compound annual growth rate, that's what CAGR stands for, is 8.04% for the high yielding stocks portfolio, which is pretty good, but the S&P brought you back 15.27%. The best year, the high yielding stocks actually brought back a 25.80%. That is insane. But even more insane is the 32.39% that the S&P brought back. And then the worst year, because you know, where there's ups, there's also downs. The pendulum always swings both ways. The worst year for the highest yielding stocks was negative 10.93%, while the S&P only suffered an 8.07% loss. So I really wanted to show you guys that, not necessarily to scare you away from investing in high yielding stocks, but I did want to say for every person that wants to invest in higher yielding stocks and make some money now, it does often come with a sacrifice of appreciation and possibly better gains with a different, maybe lower yielding investment. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Be sure to like the video if you guys learned something and or enjoyed the content. Make sure you guys are subscribing and commenting down below. Let me know. I'll screenshot it. I'll personally thank you, and you will be in the next video. Also, comment down below and let me know what you thought of today's video, if you own any of these stocks and how they're doing for you, and if any of these names surprised you. And until next time, see ya.